Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been going over a series of video presentations that I'm creating for the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular, the AWD 1111.NET Framework with Web Databases class. The textbook which will be used for the class during the fall 2019 semester is the one you see on your screen, that being Pro ASP.NET MVC 5, an A-Press text by Adam Freeman. I am in Chapter 8, alright, and in Chapter 8 we are adding navigation to our Sports Store application, and we're up to refining the URL scheme. We don't want the user to have to key in something like this. So the author says to address this, we're going to revisit the routing scheme. All right. So in other words, we changed the register routes. Made a lot of changes, it looks like, as you can see. So let's grab this. Now, one thing that I do that I do realize not everybody agrees with. Give me a second here. There's our domain. There's our unit test. Here's our UI. Okay. One thing I do that when I'm doing this stuff that not everybody agrees with is I'll come into my route config and I'll grab what is there, I'll highlight all of it, and I'll just take every bit of it and comment it out. And the reason that I do that, sometimes I go back and remove what's there, sometimes I don't, but the main rationale that I have for doing that, just so you're aware of this, is in case I make a mistake. Alright, I can always go back to what I had. I know I can always Control Z my way through there, but to me it's much easier to do it like this. Alright. Alright, pretty ugly right now. We gotta fix this up. Okay, we've already got that in there, so. Alright, again, as you know, we're redefining our routing mechanism in here, and that's exactly what is going on. And long story short, we don't want to have, we want a pretty URL. In other words, we're assuming that the person who is going in and is creating or is going to be putting in some information, we want to make them do as little work as possible. Now that should make sense to everyone. We're getting there. Again, this just happens to be the way that I do it. By no means am I advocating that other people do it this way. I'm just trying to set this thing up in a way that it makes sense for me to take a look at what's in here. So I can break down any component that I have in here and just take a look at it and, as mentioned, just see what's going on. Alright, I think that's everything. Not only do I not claim to be an expert on this routing stuff, I will claim to be a non-expert. Alright, so the author says here, we added new routes, and we must add them in the order shown. So what did we do? We said that if you just put in a slash, we should list the first page of products from all categories. Page 2 should be a specific page from all categories. Slash soccer, just the first page from soccer. Slash soccer slash page 2 should be the second page of the soccer. Alright, we won't have a second page because we're having 4 per page unless we've changed that. And there's only 3 soccer records. The routing system used by MVC to handle incoming requests from clients also generates outgoing URLs. All right. The URL action method, the author says, is the most convenient way of generating outgoing links. In the previous chapter, we used this method in the list view. Now that we have added support for category filtering, we need to go back, pass this information to the helper method. So we need to go back to our list.cshtml, and in this div that's after our for each, right here, all right, we've changed it as shown. All right. So it says prior to this, we would have had to have done something like this. So if the user clicked the page link like this, the category filter would have been lost. By adding the current category taken from the view model, it'll look more like this. All right. So when the user clicks this kind of link, the current category will be passed. I'll tell you what, we are on page 204, but let's go back. This was called refining the URL scheme, and hopefully I can still, there we go. So I went back a page. I want to see if this works. So let's come back and do a file, save all. And let's bring the list.cshtml up in our browser. And what we want to check are these 4 things. As always, I'm not sure if it's the earliness of the morning or what, but this is taking quite a bit of time to load. It's kind of funny. I used to tell people that people who work in IT are amongst the most impatient people in the world, but I think that after seeing a lot of my students, people who are studying to be in IT are probably amongst the most impatient people in the world, but I'm impatient enough myself. All right, so we want a localhost /. That looks good. First page of all products, we want /page 2. That's the second page. As long as we've done page 2, might as well do page 3. All looking good. Now we want /soccer. And there it is. Now again, we can't, if we have /soccer, as they showed in here, and we put /page2, I don't think it's going to show anything. Or it's going to keep us on the same page we were on. I don't really know. See, there is no page 2 right now. But if we go back and put in here a page 1, should take that with no problem. All right. Building a category navigation menu. All right, so we are on the bottom of page 204. I need to provide customers with a way to select a category that does not involve typing in URLs, meaning we want to present them with a list of categories available, indicating what's available and what's currently selected. And the author says, as I build out the application, I will use this list of categories in more than one controller. So I need something that is self-contained and reusable. The ASP.NET MVC framework has the concept of child actions. Child actions, the author claims, are perfect for creating items such as a reusable navigation control. A child action relies on the HTML helper method html.action, which lets you include the output from an arbitrary action method in the current view. In this case, we can create a new controller that we'll call nav controller with an action method we'll call menu that renders the navigation menu. All right, then we'll use that helper method to inject the output from the method into the layout. This approach gives me a real controller that can contain whatever application logic is needed and that can be unit tested like anything else. It is a nice way of creating smaller segments of an application while preserving our overall framework approach. I like the author's explanations to this. So we want to right-click on controllers in our UI, have an empty controller and name it nav controller. We will remove the index and we will add this menu thing in just a minute. So we will right mouse click on controllers. Right now we have only our product controller. Empty. And it will be called nav controller. There it is. We are to remove the index method and replace it with just this very simple little menu method here that I'm sure we'll be adding to as time goes on. This method returns a static message string, but it's enough to get us started while we integrate the child action into the rest of the application. I want the category list to appear on all pages, so I'm going to render this child action in the layout rather than in a specific view. We want to edit our _layout.cshtml file under views shared so that it calls this action method. Just grab the whole 9 yards here. That's what we have right now. And the key thing is right there. Okay. So in this area that's over here after we run it, hopefully that's what it's going to say. So we removed the placeholder text and replaced it with a call to our action menu. The parameters are the same. The parameters to the method are the name of the action menu to be called, which is menu, and the controller that contains it, nav. It says if you run the application now, we should see the output, so this is what should have changed. Okay. Let's do a file and let's save all. Let's just run it, see what happens. And as you can see here, We have hello from nav controller. Just thinking as that came up, is this responsive? Looks like it is. Not pretty right now, but it is responsive. All right. We can now return to the nav controller and generate a real list of categories. All right, what we have in there right now isn't doing too much. All right. We do not want to generate the category URLs to the controller. Rather, we're going to use the helper method in the view to do that. All I'm going to do in the menu action method is create the list of categories, which was done right here. So we need to add some using statements. Okay, and we want to make a change here. Well, we've got other changes to make as well. So let's just grab this. So we're after the namespace. Again, we may hit an error. This may not be totally done yet. Don't let it bother you. All right. Well, getting more than one error. Not all paths return a value. And it says to me that this line right here should probably be there. It looks like everything else is okay right now. Okay. All right. The first change we made here, in fact, let's just take a look at the changes. The first change we made here was to add a constructor, all right, that accepts an iProduct repository implementation as its argument. This has the effect of declaring a dependency Ninject will resolve when it creates instances of the nav controller class. The next change is to the menu action method, which now uses this link query that you see right here to obtain a list of categories from the repository. Since the author says we are now working with a partial view, we call the partial view method in the action to create that, which should make sense. All right. The unit test there, the author claims, is going to be relatively simple. The goal is to create a list that's sorted in alphabetic order and contains no dupes. So let's just grab this because I have been putting this in here, although we're not going over it. Mention that again. So we come into here, we go down to our unit tests, bring up our unit test here, add that test. We created a mock repository implementation that contains repeating categories and categories that are not in order. And we assured that there were no duplicates. All right, we're up to 20 minutes, so I'm going to stop here and we are going to go into creating the view on page 208 just a couple minutes.